This is the Thought Leaders Podcast.
It didn't hurt that we had that little incident with Wale where we left him off a list. Did you ever see that where we had Seinfeld and everything like that? We ended up with a cover later.
I believe I saw it a while ago, but I haven't. Do you want to just jog my memory?
Sure. So, you know Wale the rapper, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
We left him. We were just about.
By the way, he's out of DC, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Virginia, DC area. Yeah. So, we were about to launch Complex News. And right when we did that, it was towards the end of the year. It was like December. And we left him off of the 50 best albums of the year. And he called up our music editor and lost his mind on our music editor. Like, I mean, crazy. Like, I'm going to come up there. Like, you could find it. It's out there still, right? And we taped it. Like, the music editor had taped it. And so my editor-in-chief, Noah Callahan-Bever, walks into my office and is like, dude, I don't know what to do. What do we do? We have this on tape. And I'm like, listen, I go, you got two things. We can either A, use this and have a lawsuit and make this a big thing, or we can actually like launch Complex News with this. Okay. And now we're the news rather than reporting on somebody else. Like, this is a way to launch it. And we launched Complex News right with that. It was right like a week after we had launched. And it just exploded from a conversational perspective. And what it really did was took the piss out of everything. And by the way, Wale is a big friend of the brand. We love him. He is also one of the nicest people on the goddamn planet.
No, that's awesome. And I just Googled it. And as soon as the thumbnail came up, I was like, okay, I know exactly what you're talking about. I do remember that.
So, we launched it with that. And ironically, we ended up doing a cover in the spring with Wale and Seinfeld, where we did a video where basically it's Seinfeld in a diner with Wale going, you didn't make the Complex list. You have to call him. So we made it so that Jerry like poked him into it, like coaxed him into it. And that was a whole nother moment we got to revisit, and everybody had a lot of fun with it. Right.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is, that's a really, there's a lot of layers to this, that little comment. Is there's a lot of people who would get litigious about that or like security up. We're a fun and an entertainment brand at the end of the day, and we're good people, right? Mm-hmm. The people that work at this brand love the culture. We cover it the way you should cover it, but we're fun and an entertainment brand at the end of the day. We took a potentially contentious situation, turned it into content in the most fun way, disarmed the whole thing, and actually ended up making this nice arc around the whole thing and launching a business with it, right?
Love it.
Like, very original, different way to think about it. And everybody won, right? Like, everybody won. And, it's kind of funny. There's a lot of lessons to be learned with that one. And Joe LaPuma, by the way, the host of Sneaker Shopping, was actually the one who came up with the whole Seinfeld Wale cover and the video and that whole thing. That was one of the best twists of anything that we've ever done at Complex. And it's a really good one.
That's awesome. So Complex News was the first YouTube channel you guys did?
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, it was Complex.
Right,
we
Complex.
hadn't split out the news yet. That was driving Complex at the time. We did a few more longer form things. We had some documentaries and some music videos, but really Complex News. And then after about 2 years at the end of in 14, we realized that the news was not enough because we were beholden to what was going on and reacting for the most part. And we're narrative creators. We always say we make the news and others report on us. And I'm going to fast forward a little bit, but
yeah, of course.
Here's a perfect case example. Like, and I don't want to say that statement without proving it. Is look at when we do a Hot Ones. Show me a brand that doesn't steal our memes, that doesn't cover Hot Ones, whether it's social or on their own platforms. Show me the same thing when Full Size Run goes up. Show me the same thing when Sneaker Shopping with Joe LaPuma goes up.
Yeah.
Show me another media brand where all of its competitors cover its content as news. I defy you to find somebody else, because there isn't. And I'm not talking about retweets. I'm talking about real, like, writing stories about our content. So we are starting the conversation and others are amplifying our conversation. And to me, that is the definition of who the real leader is and who the followers are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that makes
on anybody, but
no, that's awesome. And we'll get to the hot one stuff later, not to be too much of a kiss ass here, but I think you did forget one compliment when it comes to hot ones is, besides the fact that other media outlets are reporting on hot ones, you kind of or completely brought back hot sauce into pop culture and into food. And we'll get to that. And we're going to get back to that. And I give you all the credit in the world, even if you don't want to take it.
Well, hold on. But we didn't just bring hot sauce back into the popular vernacular. We actually are capitalizing off of that, because three of those flavors are our own.
I know. And I have tried the last dab redo, and it was everything that you think it is, people. So,
but you know what? Los Calientes is fantastic with omelets.
Yeah. I mean, all that stuff. I mean, everything is. And we'll get back to that stuff a little later on. So you're at Complex, just a channel, right?
Right. So it's 14, and we're like, look, we can use the same thought process we did when we aggregated verticalized voices in 2006, 2007, with all of that, all of the blogs, right? But instead of aggregating outside talent, why don't we use the Complex News talent? Sean Evans was a Complex News anchor, by the way.
Yeah, I was going to say, I want to hear how you guys found Sean.
Joe LaPuma started out as an intern at Complex, and literally was also a writer who turned into our talent at sneaker shopping, right? So I said, so the strategy was like, how do we take care of those verticalized voices? But instead of doing it as a network where we're now beholden and have partnership issues and are not aligned with the individual people externally, we could have aggregated. It would have been easier and faster, but we wanted to build internally. So we made choices to build our own talent inside out as a company and create our own IP that we own. And all of this, by the way, sounds done now in 2020. Very few people, especially digital publishers, who are willing to put their money where their mouth is to not just make long form content, but IP, like evergreen value and real brands, and run like a TV model around that. We were doing that by the end of 2014, beginning of 2015, right? And, we made that choice to move from news to the people who start all the conversations. And we went hardcore. And at the New Fronts in 2015, I stood up in front of everybody and I said, we're going to create the largest library of the best evergreen youth culture content that is untethered to one platform, right? So we have availability of taking it other places. There's no windowing problems. There's no regionality problems, and there's no exclusivity problems. And, when we did that, I don't think a lot of people understood that not tethering ourselves to like a cable channel or a specific streaming platform and losing our IP or losing control of that IP. A lot of people are trying to backtrack out of that now. We made a choice then that was the right one. And now we have a library of almost 2,000 hours of premium content that we could take anywhere and put anywhere on any platform, monetize it, and develop audiences everywhere. So, yeah, I mean, not a lot of people were thinking that way. I mean, I'm not saying there's no other way to do it, but when you thought about building IP, having control, the initial investment, not playing the optics game of short-term bullshit audience development or throwing out big numbers that really didn't mean anything. We did it the hard way, brick by brick, with a plan, knowing that this is where we wanted to be, and being in control of that library and being able to monetize it across the board. And instead of somebody else owning Hot Ones IP and not being able to make a game show that goes on to Turner and TBS,
which I've seen. Right? We're going to get to it.
It's a proof point, but it's a proof point, right? And that's why nobody else is doing that. Can you think of another digital outlet that took a brand created an iterative or derivative product and actually got it onto television.
Yeah, no, it's you guys are just doing, you're innovators, and you're correct. You guys are really the only people, really doing that. The only other brand, and they're doing things differently than you guys, and it's a different space. I think another brand that really bucks the trend is really keeping it all in-house and together is kind of Barstool. They're really, they do have the big outside investors, but they're different, obviously different business model, but they're also doing something where they're keeping everything in-house. And we just saw all the drama with the, the podcast and everything like that.
Yeah, I look, I love them. You got to remember they're doing it in different mediums as well.
Right.
They're not spending the money on video. They're not, that, and no shots. It's just a differentiation.
Yeah.
I love what they've done. Talk about also doing it effectively with not a lot of capital. It's impressive.
Yeah.
Their voices, my big challenge, because they haven't created the video brands that you can now iterate to get the bigger checks. And I'm not saying there aren't big checks in podcasting, but I worry about how long you can keep just to have the same size business of dollars in podcasting to video. You need probably 10 to 15 times more talent in podcasting of the same amount of 15 times the amount of initiatives or individual products just to get to the same amount of money that you would by 15 times less in a video basis. I wonder how you control that much talent and pay them for that long of a period of time from a scale basis. That's, if anybody can pull it off, they probably can. But it is definitely going to be an upcoming challenge, as you just alluded to. That's just one of them. I can only imagine once those numbers came out, how every single person who's got a podcast on Barstool is renegotiating what they're getting paid.
Yeah, but I mean, hats off to them. They're doing just incredible stuff.
It is great. They have embraced personality-oriented verticals, unlike almost anybody else out there.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Completely agree with you. But back to, the star of today's episode, Complex Media. So you're at the Complex, we're at that one channel. And then in 2014, you said, okay, instead of telling over the narrative, let's create the narrative.
That's right.
Which I love, completely think that's incredible. And again, that is so good. And I think anyone out there doing any type of media should want to strive to be like that. So talk me through those first.
Yeah, you should. They should strive, but not everybody has something to say.
That is a very good point.
Some people are just aggregators or curators of what other people are saying. Yeah. And I think, not to make a big delineation, but if you think about the future of successful media businesses, I just don't think there's going to be anything in the middle. You're either going to be a narrative creator or you're going to be an amplifier, and those are getting further and further apart. They also have different values, right? They might have the same scale, but what's interesting is the monetization is very different.
Yes, that is very true.
That's the way to think about it. When, and this is a lot harder, right?
Yeah.
The narrative creators is a lot harder than aggregating what somebody else is saying.
Yes, that is true. But you guys done it very well by creating the narrative. So again, you have that you have Complex, the one YouTube channel, and you spin it off, or I don't want to call it spin-offs, but you start creating this other content and this other narrative. How did that come about? And kind of walk me through those first other verticals or channels that you guys launched.
Well, look, we always thought of, let me make a better delineation. When we started seeing Hot Ones get traction, right, and sneaker shopping get traction.
What year did those all launch, by the way?
About 2015.
And Hot Ones and Hot Ones and sneaker shop, they launched kind of at the same time?
Part of First We Feast, which is our food culture brand. And sneaker shopping were both, 2015. We did Joe did an episode with Jim Jones, sneaker shopping, and the first episode of Hot Ones with Sean and Antoniello. And it was, I will tell you, it was awesome. I mean, that is go back and watch that. That's a good one, by the way.
Yeah. By the way, the connections are just coming round and round. I went to school in Paramus, had a really, really good friend in Fairlawn, right down the block from Jim Jones's house. So it's just, it keeps.
Oh, by the way, another person who Jim is funny as shit, smart as hell, by the way, and as real of a real guy as you're ever going to meet. Like, big fan. I mean, beyond. We ended up coming back from South by Southwest. We're on the I'm on the tarmac. I was lucky enough to get upgraded into first class. I'm sitting there and there's 3 empty seats, right, all along the windows in first class. And we're like delayed and we're delayed and we're delayed. And literally on finally comes the plane. Jim Jones, Jewels, and Cameron roll onto the plane together, right?
Wow. You're taking me back to, I believe this is freshman year of high school, when We Fly High and just those songs were just, those were like the first viral songs that I was listening to on repeat. Everyone knew them. You would walk down hallways of high school, just everyone singing it.
The Giants adopted it. The Giants adopted it.
Yeah.
But I mean, and so Jim ponies up and sits next to me. He was my seatmate. And all we did was talk hip hop and life on the way home from Austin. And it was like, he's just as good of a guy as you're going to meet. Funny as shit. Yeah, I mean, awesome. Yeah, just amazing. The whole time he's yelling it, like, because I guess Cam doesn't like to fly, and he's yelling at him the whole time, like, calm the fuck down. And it was just so funny. It was great. That was one of my best flights I've ever taken. But so where was I? Oh, so we realized that basically these series that were creating the communities were the result. Those communities were the same communities that were the result of the blogs. So our point was, instead of launching more brands and .coms, these series are basically the new school version of websites, because they create the same end result. You're just getting there differently, right?
Right. Yeah.
The writers become the video people, like in front of the camera, and the editors are the editors, right? Like, and it's all the same shit. And we're like, okay, so we need to create a ton of IP. So we started going, what are all the things that people want to talk about? So we launched Everyday Struggle. There was no everyday hip hop talk show, right? Like we launched Full Size Run. We launched, I mean, I can go, sorry, it's just right now I can go on and on and on.
No, yeah, you guys have a lot of stuff.
It flew, but we launched very aggressively in the top of 2016. We announced the slate of where we were going to go, hopefully by the end of 16, get up to 40 weekly and daily shows. We got up to 33 by the end of 2016. That's more original programming than most cable channels put up.
The Thought Leaders Podcast.